So ladies and
A huge round of applause. I request Chairman to kindly introduce the speaker to the August gathering and welcome him with a floral bouquet.
a huge round of applause, please.
Very good afternoon. It's my great pleasure and honor to introduce today's speaker for the technical session, Data Analytics. Vinay is a graduate from Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, and co-founder of Marketix, one of the first pure play analytics startups globally. Marketix was acquired by WNS. Vinay is now consultant on analytics projects globally and also runs an independent content platform, Humora Movie. So here before you, I introduce Mr. Vinay. The stage is yours, sir. Please proceed.
Hello. Thank you so much, Mr. Shetty. Thank you. As someone rightly said, getting anybody in the afternoon, especially on a Saturday, is an extremely difficult task. I have absolutely no idea how you managed to come back. Is the microphone working? But thank you so much, even if you are dozing off, but thank you so much for being here. There is one of those accountant stories which keeps floating around. The boss called the accountant and asked him on a Saturday, like today, can you come to office? We have some work. And as is prone, the accountant replied, yes, sir. And like all Indian accountants said, yes, sir, I will do it, I'll come. So the boss asked, when will I see you? He said, sir, today the public transportation is slightly slow, so it'll take me some time. So he said, can you give me an estimate when it will be there, when you will be there? He said, sir, by Monday. So that seems to be the case here. We have a lot of people here, but I am assuming most of you will be dozing off. But lest we not waste our time, I have been in the analytics space for a very long time. We were one of the first off the blocks in analytics globally. We started in Bangalore, our office was in Indiranagar. At that juncture, we worked only with international clients. I was based out of the United States. And one of the things was that being one of the first off the blocks, we got covered by a lot of academicians. One of them was C.K. Prahlad, which some of you might be knowing about. I had the good fortune of teaching certain classes with Dr. Prahlad. And one of the key differences, I went to an IIM here, and one of the key differences of actually being in a class in India and having to take classes in the United States, in Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Wharton, was that there was tremendous degree of participation from the audience, from the class, from everybody. And hopefully some of you will participate and make this a success, because as you might have realized, analytics is not new. It's not something which hasn't been around for a long period of time. Once I was on a flight and I happened to meet a friend of mine, and she wanted to know what was I doing. I have always been an entrepreneur. So the previous company had failed. So this company that I was on, she wanted to know what I was doing, and I was telling her that we do a lot of analysis and we predict what is going to happen in the future. So she said, oh, so you're into astrology. and which is essentially that. So, in ancient times also, there have been a lot of analytics going around. Astrology being one of them is essentially a humongous amount of analysis. How many of you people are into palmistry here? Anybody? No one into palmistry here? None of you? That's a little strange. But if one were to ask people why they get into palmistry, it's actually a, people do have it for different reasons. So someone might actually say that I do it because I really like what patterns I can come up with and how I can actually marry those patterns with your behavior and come up with something which is meaningful for you. For the same person, the other people will most likely say that he's actually lying. Most likely he does palmistry because it allows him to get close to the opposite sex. And 99 out of 100 people will most likely say that. Now if you were to look at it from a distance, what you end up is doing analytics and taking care of statistics. So analytics is a lot of statistics. Statistically, unfortunately, though individuals move at their own whim, they make their own decisions and they are erratic. It is kind of difficult to predict how they're going to behave the next way. As a whole, the human race behaves very statistically. And that's what analytics does. So we are in a space today where we are going to do analytics, which is doing some degree of statistical analysis to forecast future behavior. What is the case for analytics? When you look at banking, banking is essentially a money lending business. But most bankers don't make money out of money lending. Money lending is the core of what they do. Whenever there is recession, wherever there is crisis, that is where they go back to. But that is not where most of their money is made in a good time. They create different products. They create different ways in which they can hoodwink their customer. Essentially what they are saying is that we're giving you advice on something which is our expertise. We've seen over the last 20-25 years that that expertise is reasonably worthless, but they actually pass on that expertise, charge you for it. They are the ones who make the money in the final run. Same is with retailers. Retailers are just working on the arbitrage opportunity when it comes to inventory. The speed with which they can actually turn around inventory is what makes money for them. But that's not all they do today. If you look at Amazon, Amazon is also a retailer, but Amazon essentially is a big data company. The ability with which it suggests the next product to you is what makes it successful and what makes it ensure that you buy more from them. However, these are still their core. Their core activity is still this. They are still managing inventory when it comes to a retailer. They are still managing money, taking deposits and giving out loans when it comes to a bank. It's on top of this that they actually work out. But because they work with money and inventory, they come up with certain core skills which can be leveraged for them to do anything else. So let me just take a step back. The topic which we were discussing today is data analytics, a new vertical. Now why would we discuss a new vertical for anybody and for you especially? One reason could be that what you have right now has certain challenges. And second is that you all need to or want to make more money. Most likely it's a combination of the two. If you guys don't see the fact that a lot of what you do over a period of time and going forward is getting shifted to some high-tech worked on by low-tech people, I guess then you're happy. But most likely that's what is happening. And you need to move to a different set of skill sets where you actually identify what is all that is being done by technology. And to make more money, you need to give a larger opportunity for your clients to appreciate you. And the easiest thing for you to do is data analytics, because at the end of the day, what do you work with? So you guys, CAs, you are the custodian and often the best arbiter of financial data in a company. You know more about their financial data and the way things work than people inside the company too, whether it's a small organization or a large organization. Strangely, you guys operate exclusively in a data environment. You are in the most structured space, giving advice, which has to be most nuanced and the most creative, I imagine. Your creativity, when it succeeds, is amazing. But it happens seldom. Shouldn't you be making much more money out of it? And that's the core of what we are going to discuss today. I just wanted to go into a couple of things that we did over a period of time to suggest, unlike other initiatives that you do, it is extremely important when it comes to analytics to actually have a financial goal in mind. There is no point in going into an analytical exercise without realizing or estimating what your financial benefit is going to be. It could be, and you guys often do this, you have two initiatives of an organization. Let's say it's a cell phone company. You can either upgrade a particular phone or you can create a new phone. It's a financial decision at the end of the day on whether you should do one or the other. And that is, in many ways, analytics. You're not using a lot of statistics, you're not using econometrics, but it is analysis of data, using that to project something which hasn't happened. So I'm going to give you an example of what happened. This was in the year 2005. This was in the height of the time when people were buying DVDs. I know it seems ancient today, but DVDs were an extremely important thing in the market. And we were working with a client in the United States, which owned the supply chain. So there are very few clients who can own the supply chain. They have an ability to actually direct where their supply goes to, which store, exactly which store in, say, for Walmart or Target and the like. And it's only the top two players in a particular category can do that. This company could do that. DVDs are like fast-moving consumer goods. They have a shelf life which is very limited. More than 70% of your revenues from a particular DVD would come within the first 7 days. And hence, how you maximize the first 7 days is critical to your success. So here is what we did, and here is what, say, a finance guy would do. You had, at the end of the first day, data on how each and every store within the United States did for a particular new title. That data came back to us overnight, as in it came back in real time to us. We had census information, which gave us the demographic breakdown on each and every store that this was being sold to. You marry the data and come up with a recommendation engine saying that before tomorrow starts, please redistribute the DVDs in this way. In single titles, it ended up making more than $30 million of revenue. And that is the impact of real-time data. And there is a time value of data. There is a data, if utilized appropriately and at that particular point of time, it makes a lot of sense and people can make a lot of money out of it. The second one is again something which is strategic in nature, but again financial in perspective. And I can give you the name of the company. This is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has a problem, and which exists even today. As audiences, as customers are getting younger and younger, their desire to have something reasonably unhealthy like Coke is reducing. They are moving to other drinks, whether it is the Diet Coke within their portfolio itself, or to other drinks like maybe even wine, or just plain water. Now when this happens, an organization like Coca-Cola has a tremendous problem. Their other products are being sold because their core product is still there, which is Coca-Cola. We needed to financially figure out how much money can you spend on Coca-Cola. You definitely need to spend on the main brand Coca-Cola so that the effect does not wear out on the rest. So in presently, you guys, the CA, do the following. You have complete access to financial information, and you uncover whatever you can. Some of you do that, some of you just audit and give back the data. If some of you are diligent, some of you really want to give inputs to your clients, you do this, which is identify process improvements to increase efficiency. And most importantly, one of your core functions is to manage financial risk for the company. Most likely, this is at a point in time. Whether you come in every quarter or come in once a year, it is at that point in time when you actually give this input to your client. It's not a continuous thing that you do. Going forward, likely thing which is going to happen is that you're going to work with extremely large data sets. You will require continuous monitoring and verification. That data set, now whether it's inventory, whether it is financial data, whether it is client data, all the data is continuously getting refreshed, and you need to actually have a handle of it and verify it. Because verify it, if you look at what has happened with Twitter today, an inability of the financial team of Twitter to identify who's a core customer has now gone into litigation. And it's a, how many, 44? We are talking of 350,000 crores, the deal is worth. Once you do this, you'll actually have much better analysis going forward. Your ability to analyze even financial data will be much more improved because you'll be doing it on a continuous basis. Since you're doing it on a continuous basis, your ability to go back and rectify what you do will also improve. Unlike the government of India, which actually rectifies its GDP data every year, you can actually go back and keep rectifying what has to be rectified. One of the core functions of any organization is to predict or to forecast. I'm sure a lot of you do forecasting, sales forecasting, balance sheet forecasting. All of this forecasting you do for a long period of time. The forecasting in itself is not a very complicated task. It is just taking past data and giving, just taking past data and just projecting into the future using simple arithmetic. But when it comes to analytics, you actually have to take care of a lot of other variables. how is all of this impacting decision making in an organization is now going to become critical for you all. If you want to make a better impact in an organization, you have to impact decision making. It cannot be just that you're doing a reporting duty. Slowly but steadily, the potential for much of this reporting duty being taken over by tech is going to be large. Your ability to understand that and give value addition is what's going to be critical and the value add. Why you should be doing this? I mean, I guess all of you know this. You have great technical skills. You're essentially solving problems in most organizations. In most organizations, the accountant and the financial planner is someone who's tasked with, oh, I have this situation, I have multiple data sets, please just sort it out for me. More often than not, you need to actually have a big picture. What does one tiny infraction mean for the larger health of the company is one critical goal that you need to actually manage. Some of the core skills that you have, see in the data analytics space, unfortunately, a lot of people want to get into analytics, but they are unable to. Inherently, a large chunk of people are very, very uncomfortable looking at large amounts of data or even small amounts of data. You ask them to look at numbers, they become uncomfortable. But you, all of you here, are extremely comfortable with numbers. That is 50% of the job done. More often than not, you know exactly where to get the data from. You are extremely comfortable procuring the right kind of data. You're also extremely comfortable with the structure of various data elements. You are typically used to making smaller data sets out of the data, which is an essential part of all analytics. I mean, this is self-explanatory. You're willing to find solutions, and they are typically problems which are brought to you. You're not the ones who are creating the problems. The problems come to you, and you have to figure out how to find the solution. Unlike other consultants, your core competency is to let the data talk. It's not as if you're going to manufacture a structure and come back and say, okay, fine, the data has to give you something. You let the data tell you what it is, and if that's the case, it is. I mean, this product is failing, this product is failing. You can't change that from the data. So this is the value I think you bring in. It's not at the point at which the data is compiled, which is what you've been doing so far. You've been compiling financial data so far at a point of time. But that's not the only point of time at which you can actually provide value. But at the point of time when decisions are being made using insights derived from the data. So you need to derive the insights from the data. And it has to be across the organization in the way in which it helps. I don't know how many of you actually go back and say, the way your staffing is structured is very lopsided. The number of, I mean, your management is very top heavy. The number of people who are earning 70% of your salaries is just 10% of your people. And very often these lopsided structures are extremely ineffective for organizations. Now, this is the core of what being an analytics advisor would mean from your point of view. You have to move away from just reporting. You have to move away from saying that this is what the data is telling you. this is what the data is, I don't know anything else. You need to move away from that and become advisors. You have one major advantage over the normal consultant. So the normal consultant could be from KPMG or PwC and the like, is that the manager at the organization very often thinks that this person is going to take away my job. Very often, the manager in the organization feels that this person cannot be trusted. But you already move in from a position of trust. You're already being trusted with all your data. And hence, when you impart this advice, it at least comes in saying that he doesn't have any ulterior motive in the bargain. So one of the things I was talking about was the time value of data. See, the amount of data that you have is always insufficient. It is never enough, the amount of data that you have. However, the decision that you have to make is always immediate. You have to decide right away. Your ability to optimize the two becomes critical, and there is a tremendous value to this. Your access to a data environment is over and above anybody else's. And that you will not utilize this is, I think, leaving a lot of money on the table. All this data at some time or the other is available to you in real time if you want to. You have inventory data, point of sale data, dashboards, billing data, warranty data. I mean, to give you an example, I was once working with a pharmaceutical company. Pharmaceutical companies have an expiration date which is much more sacrosanct than any other organization. We know for a fact that every organization should adhere to a LIFO or a FIFO policy and be consistent with it. But it rarely happens in an organization. It rarely ever happens. Any financial team actually managing to implement this, depending on the size of the organization, can save millions. Anything which is more than 45 days old, inventory, as in if it has only 45 days left for sale, is more or less junk stock. And they need to actually sell that. This is information which is always available to you in real time. Organizations should be doing it, they don't do it. To give you an example, way back in 2006, SAP was trying to they were trying to get into the analytics space. And they were trying to figure out which clients they could work with. So they were in the Intel office in Portland. One of their due diligence that they did, they realized that Intel, probably at that time one of the key technology firms of the world, had 21 instances of SAP in one office in Portland. SAP is supposed to be an enterprise level software. There were 21 different instances of SAP within the organization, and hence that meant no one knew what the other department was doing, and which is one of the key things, and you are the guys who can integrate that. So one of the things that you do is use past data. This is what is happening. You are figuring out what is happening, you're figuring out why is it happening, and you're figuring out what will happen next just using the past data, right? And this is your core of forecasting. Your financial forecasts actually take Excel sheets, probably take a time series analysis or whatever, and just predict into the future. What should ideally happen? You need to move things to a desired behavior. See, the key role of an organization or any company is to understand what existing consumer behavior is. Also realize what is, from the company's point of view, desired consumer behavior. And move your client from the existing consumer behavior to the desired consumer behavior. That is the key role. I know it's easier said than done, but that's the key role of any organization. You want to move people from using and buying things on Flipkart, you want them to move to a desired role of buying it on Amazon. Or you want people to move from someone who's using slippers to actually using shoes. That is the way you want people to move. For that, key is to first understand why they are at what they are right now, and then move them to the desired behavior, whichever is the behavior that you want to do. What will be the steps or the process that people will use to actually reach that becomes core. This, statistically, you can move a set of human beings to that desired behavior, which is what, Facebook gives you as a platform. It has an understanding inherent within the system. You use that understanding and you can move people to do things, whether it is Google or Amazon or Facebook. Amazon's algorithm, which suggests different for him and different for him when they buy the same product, is based on this understanding. You need to move to that space where you are making tangible actions and critical business decisions from prescriptive analysis. Accountants will have to use forecasts to make recommendations for future growth opportunities. So it may not be with existing products itself, may not be with existing markets itself. It may also be that the existing products cannot work. Or in some cases, raise an alert on poor choices. How do we do that? I'm actually rushing through. I know. How do we do something like this? As in, you have to start with a pilot. And the pricing of the pilot is anybody's guess. When we started off with doing $2,000 projects with Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, and ended up with close to 80 people working for them in 105 countries, where we moved to dedicated people working in a center of excellence for Procter & Gamble over time. So you start off with a pilot, and for you to get a pilot with your existing client is, I'm assuming, much easier than it was for any of us. From that, you create a proof of concept. Of course, you have to deliver on that. From there, you move to a center of excellence, if you can, which is set up a team which does work for that particular client, and then go and that team works on an ongoing basis, which is essentially what you want to do. This is the engagement process that people do, but I just wanted to know if any of you people have been doing analytics for your clients, any of you, in any way. I'm assuming this is a great audience which hasn't been doing any of this. So all that you've been doing has been reporting and auditing so far for your clients? Yeah? You haven't moved ahead to giving advisory services?
GST due dates never let us do it, sir.
Sorry?
All the due dates that we have never let us do any of it.
Okay, I actually couldn't hear you properly.
We said all the due dates that we are always running behind will never let us do any of it. It has never let us all these while to do any of the analytics part yet.
So is it your client which doesn't allow you, or your organization, or the amount of time you have?
It's the deadlines that we have each month.
So your regulatory body, you think, is not allowing you to do this? Okay. So statutory compliances, I agree, it's there for banks also. I mean, that's the reason the first example I gave was a bank. Statutory compliances exist for banks also, have always existed for banks, and they have found a way to do it. Now, analytics, when it comes to you guys, will be of two kinds. One is that you work only for a particular client and it becomes sacrosanct. But the larger intelligence that you're going to create is because you work across multiple clients. How do you use that learning and that intelligence to impact various people is going to be critical. There is one which you already have. You know how balance sheets move across different industries and across different companies within the industry. You are utilizing that in some way or the other. I understand the deadline part, but are those deadlines generating enough money for you that you don't need to look at something else? I think there is a tremendous opportunity. I mean, when she started off introducing me, she spoke about how data is the new oil. And the people who sit on the largest amount of most sacrosanct data of any organization are you people. No one else has so much proprietary data available to them. When we were working in analytics, half our time was actually in procuring data. Once you procure data, even the largest and the most robust organizations have multiple data sources. The larger the organization, the more complicated because they've acquired different systems, different organizations. Most people believe that that data is there. They own it, they don't want to share it. Let's say Tata Steel has acquired Chorus. The Chorus people do not want to share it with Tata Steel. Leave alone share it with us. So it's an extremely large challenge. But you guys already have that access. You guys already know. You are sitting on that data. I understand there is a degree of proprietary and fiduciary responsibility that you have over here, but you have been extremely innovative in going around and spinning circles around your clients. So this should be something which you can do. And the amount of monetary potential that this has is humongous. I was going to go through different ways in which one can create this process. I'm going to quickly tell you, this was what we had done, which became a case study in C.K. Prahlad's last book, which is essentially, when you talk about data analytics or when you talk about accounting, people believe that it is rocket science. Only one set of people can do it and no one else. It's also something which people think is true to a particular jurisdiction. Person from one jurisdiction cannot do something in some other jurisdiction. His whole last book, C.K. Prahlad's last book, was that you can deliver from anywhere. Excellence can be delivered from anywhere in the world. I think you can also. I'm sure a lot of you are already doing it. Whether it is just pure play remote services to certain clients or advisory services to other clients. You people have been doing advisory services when it comes to M&A transactions, when it comes to downsizing or right-sizing of organizations. You've been giving advisory services to people or restructuring. I think the larger opportunity today is to move out of that cocoon and start advising on other strategic functions, whether it is inventory management, whether it is strategic choices on the next product to go in for. So to give you an example, the kind of people that you require to deliver an analytics project is slightly different from what you will have right now. You'll have to staff differently. But the domain experts are across the project and across projects will be you. You are the guys who understand the business. You have data analysts. Data analysts are existing in your organization. You have tech people, I'm sure you have tech people who are existing in your organization who handle most of the data. You need to get is a statistician and econometrician. These are the core new people that you probably need to actually get into your organization to do the analytics work. If you look at a customer life cycle, you impact at all levels. I have no idea if you are actually dividing your own data when you're analyzing data in that way, but it's a core, huge level that you have. I'm just looking at a customer life cycle. When a customer gets into the system, at some juncture that customer either going to die or is going to leave you. If you say you're a credit card company, you have to acquire that customer. Once you acquire that customer, you have to build that relationship. After a while, you want to sell that person more, make that person touch more products of yours. But at some point of time, they're going to leave you either because they die or they move or they are just not good enough for you and you let them actually leave your system. This whole customer life cycle is something which is data oriented. It is pure data. This is how large organizations globally are now getting structured. You take an Amazon globally, or a Microsoft globally, or you take a Tesla globally. They are all looking at this. Like a Tesla will see how you can get a person in at the lowest end, their S-class model or whatever, and how to move them up the value chain to different products. This data exists within the system. This is just a representation of what you can do and what is a potential for you to do actually within an organization. See, I wanted to go through specific cases that I actually did some consulting with MCA, Manohar Chaudhary and Associates, and some of the things that we did as a CA firm. This was to ascertain the siphoning of funds and likelihood of financial manipulation for a real estate investor. And this was actually a global investor. And they had already invested. They had a desire to find out that any of the partners are doing something because their compliance issues in different jurisdictions had manifest. They needed to ensure that their compliance issues were being met. They had no way of figuring it out themselves. So we went about establishing a network of associates to figure out each company which was actually investing, what were their partner profiles, and which other. So it turned out to be that there was various degrees of manipulation. Right? There's various degrees of manipulation which is happening. We are not in a position to impact this, but at least decisions can be made on the basis of this. This one is a lot of grunt work to identify suspicious emails, documents, and fraudulent transactions for a large beverage retailer. Now, when you have textual data, see, unlike you people, you're working predominantly in actual mathematical data, which is easy to analyze. There is no difference of opinion when it comes to the number. It is 2 in your language, it is 2 in anyone else's language. But when it comes to the written word, which is 90% of the data globally, it is a very difficult task to do that. Email is the written word. Email, on the basis of how punctuations are used, have different meanings. People, younger people write differently than older people. So a lot of training of the data. So there are mechanisms to actually sift through textual data, whether it is natural language processors or it is semantic analysis and the like. There are a lot of processes to actually take care of this. However, in each individual case, you have to train it. If this were easy, then someone would have created an engine where you could figure out how stock markets move. Because Twitter is rife with people tweeting about and talking about stock movements. but no one has been able to analyze this so well that they can predict future action. Because textual data is very difficult to actually analyze. In this case, we were working with a finite number of documents stroke email. You had to go through a sample of it and train the data to classify them and then figure out what could be potential frauds. So you erred on the side of caution. If there were finally 7% fraud emails, you initially collected through your algorithm between 15 to 20% of them as fraud, and then manually sifted through them and came up with the 7%. This is a supply chain analysis program to improve vendor management, inventory management, and supply chain network across countries for a large power plants distributor. Now, this again, see, one of the largest spaces in analytics is spend analytics. The number of invoices a large organization has is humongous. The number of vendors a large organization has is humongous. Optimizing that saves a humongous degree of money. One of the first companies to do analytics was General Electric. They did this in the year, I think, 2001 or 2002, before anybody came on. And they did it in the spend space. And in the first year itself, they saved absolutely just on optimizing of how they were reaching out to the vendors, how many vendors they had, how many had to be managed. They saved over $1 billion in the first, I think, 2001 or 2002. So the potential for that is huge. And this is data which you have. This data is there with you. I know you have tremendous deadlines, but your deadlines is because you're sitting on this data. This data is with you as much as it's within any organization. All vendor data, all invoice data, all payments, that data is there with you in real time, more or less, if you want it. Spend analytics is one of the largest spaces where impact can be had, where people can make immediate impact and say that this amount of saving has happened. It does not require major restructuring within an existing organization. It just requires external restructuring of people the way they work with you. And for large organizations where it's like General Electric or General Motors, the impact of this is huge. There are legacy vendors that we have in all organizations. Are they effective going forward? Is there reassessment required? All of that is part of spend analytics. So, just want to sum up. I was hoping that we would have an interactive audience. I guess the afternoon was a little difficult, and it's also Saturday. But keeping that in mind, I do actually very strongly believe that you guys are sitting on a gold mine. You are the guys who handle all the data. You own most of the data processes. People believe that you know their data better than them. Most people don't even want to touch this data. I mean, they could be great entrepreneurs. But when it comes to actually looking at data, they don't want to do it. They just want to pass it off. They want someone else to just come and tell them, okay, fine, this is my profit. As long as within the benchmark of what they were thinking, they don't want to get into the details. And that's a fact. It could be a small organization or a big organization. They want to have implicit trust in you. Whether you're trustworthy or not, I don't know. But they want to have implicit trust in you. I think it is time for you to leverage that. And one of the key ways in which you could leverage that is advising them on the data, utilizing the data that they give you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request for the vote of thanks to be presented.
Thank you so much, Vinay sir, for this wonderful session. Now I request our KCA President, Chandan Shetty sir, to give the memento as a gratitude, presence of gratitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, applause please. A round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandan sir. First of all, I would like to thank Chairman of the Bangalore branch for giving us the opportunity to be part of this steamed program today. And this technical session, a unique one, where the importance of data has been analyzed today to focus the future behavior, how data can play a crucial role, has been explained by our Vinay sir. And as we are aware, we compile the financial statements, financial data. But what we can also focus is decision can be made on the insights of the data we compile. More on reporting, we need to be more advisory to the business where sustainability can be maintained. That's what Vinay sir was explaining. It's a wonderful session. I wholeheartedly thank on behalf of Bangalore branch of SSF ICA for this wonderful session. Thank you so much, Vinay sir. I also thank all the delegates, PA chairmen, for patiently hearing this session. Thank you so much. Thank you once again.